Is it possible to reach financial independence in 10 years? Let's say you find yourself in a position where you have zero retirement savings, barely any money in the savings accounts, and you don't have a retirement strategy in place. Let's say you're 30 years old with a high income and you set a target to retire by the time you turn 40 years old so you can travel the world. Let's say you're 40 years old and you want to leave your job in 10 years because you want to prioritize your health by the time you turn 50 and keep telling terrible dad jokes like that one. Let's say you're 50 years old and you want to spend more time with your spouse or grandkids by the time you turn 60. If you're brand new to my channel, my name is Sai and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to go over how we created our own retirement strategy for the next 10 years to reach financial independence. Even if you're not looking to retire in 10 years, this video will show you how we automate our savings and investment and what kind of tools we use to reach financial independence. So on day one, the first question we asked ourselves is how much do we need to invest to be considered financially independent? I made a video about the 10 levels of financial independence and 5 stages of financial freedom, and I will link that video in the description below. You can also get these slides I'm about to show you by visiting firesidechat.com/contact. You and your spouse, if you're married, need to be completely committed to your FIRE plan and don't let anyone else distract you. You're gonna hear a lot of distractions. You're gonna hear a lot of negative opinions from your friends and families who are not as financially literate as you. And the first step to reaching financial independence is having enough money invested to pay for your day-to-day expenses. I'm talking about your essential expenses like housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, and communications. On average, our essential expenses will be around $3,500 a month or $42,000 a year. When I multiply $42,000 by 25 years, it's $1,050,000, and that's our lean financial independence number. When I add healthcare, which we know that we roughly need around $200,000 by the time we retire, our financial independence number will increase from $1.05 million to $1.25 million. And when we add additional discretionary savings, investing, and travel expenses, we would like to have an additional $62,000 a year or $1.55 million in Fat Fire number. So when I combine 1.25 and $1.55 million, that gives us $2.8 million. So with a 4% withdrawal rate, we will make $100,000 a year in annual income during our retirement. And out of that $62,000 a year, we would most likely invest $14,000 into our Roth IRAs and maybe another $15,000 to $20,000 into our general investment accounts. And the rest we'll spend on traveling, food, and entertainment. By the way, you can get our free FIRE resources by visiting firesidechat.com/contact. You can also check out the Fireside Chat shop, and I have all of my stuff on my bookshelf at firesidechat.com/shopping. So you probably think what we did first was to work on our budget, and we actually did the complete opposite. And our personalized budget system is what's called the Pay Yourself First budget system, and I will link that video in the description below. We spent our first month working on it because we wanted to maximize our retirement accounts like TSP, Roth IRAs, and HSAs. We also wanted to contribute to our non-retirement accounts like our dividend stock portfolio, growth stock portfolio, and Coinbase. And we knew our income was high enough to invest at least 50, 60, and then potentially 70% of our income as our income continues to increase over the years. The second task was to reduce our discretionary expenses, and I will go over that later in this video. So what we did was list all of our retirement accounts and savings accounts with our short-term cash reserve. The first thing we looked at was our emergency fund. Since we're a dual income household, we really just needed 3 months of our expenses saved in our emergency fund. So if one of us loses a job, we can still get by just on one income. So we fully funded our emergency fund, which was about $14,000, and we locked that away in a completely separate savings account with Ally Bank, not sponsored by Ally Bank. The second thing we did was to create a priority list to invest in our retirement accounts. And let's say my wife has a 401k plan with a 5% employer match, and my TSP also has a 5% employer match. My wife has a Roth IRA and I have a Roth IRA, and the total contribution limit is $12,000 for the year 2022. My wife and I each have an HSA with our employer, and the total contribution limit is $7,300 for the same year. And my wife and I could contribute up to $41,000 to our 401k and TSP not counting my employer match. So in total, we're able to contribute $60,300 to our TSP, 401k, HSA, and backdoor Roth IRA. And I will link the video to the backdoor Roth IRA in the description below. If our employer contributes, and let's say $10,000 a year to our 401k and TSP, that's a total of $70,300 a year into our retirement accounts when I count the employer match. Let me pull the compound interest calculator here. Let's say we're 50 years old and we have zero savings and we want to retire by the time we turn 60. I also added $15,000 a year to our catch-up contributions for 50 or older. So with an 8% average annual rate of return, by the time we turn 60 years old, we would have $1.5 million total in our TSP, 401k, IRAs, and HSA. With the 4% withdrawal rate, we will make $61,000 a year in passive income when we reach 59.5 and age 65 for HSA. Even if one spouse doesn't work, and if I subtract $60,300 by $20,500, we would still have $1.2 million by the time we turn 60 years old. If we're 40 years old and we want to retire at age 50 with the same intensity, we would still have $1.2 million by the time we turn 50. And even if we stop contributing, we would still have $2.7 million by the time we turn 60 years old. If we're 30 years old, we want to retire early at age 40, we would have $5.9 million by the time we turn 60 years old. Imagine making $235,000 a year in passive income. Now, that is the power of compound interest. Once we automated our retirement savings, the third thing we did was to go over our entire expenses in our checking account. So we wanted to slash anything that was unnecessary. And most people, including ourselves, probably spend the most money on groceries and dining out every month. We gave ourselves a budget for housing like mortgage, HOA, utilities, and other bills to keep them under 25% of our take-home income. And one thing we gave up 5 years ago was cable TV. We switched to streaming services like Netflix, HBO, and Apple TV, which are significantly cheaper than cable. And since we have Verizon, we get Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus for free, and we switched cell phone plans to reduce our expenses. And our combined expenses right now are about $50,000 a year. Whatever we have remaining after our retirement savings and expenses in our budget, we put whatever we have remaining into our dividend stock and growth stock portfolios, and our taxable brokerage accounts with dividend stocks and growth stocks will be one of our main sources of income during early retirement. If we're 50 years old, then we would just focus on our retirement savings plans like TSP, 401k, and IRA. So let's play with some numbers here. In order to achieve $40,000 a year in passive income with an 8% annual return, we would need to invest at least $55,000 a year. Not gonna lie, that's not easy to do if your income isn't in the six figures, especially if you're trying to achieve financial independence in 10 years. If you add it up with your retirement contributions, that's about $115,000 a year into investment. Even if our income stabilized or just decreased, we would still prioritize our retirement accounts because of the tax advantages. The worst case scenario for us is to retire at age 60, and the best case scenario is to retire at age 40. The only thing we can control here is how much we contribute to our non-retirement accounts, and what we can't control is how the market performs. By the way, if you need help with your budget, you can schedule a free one-on-one 20-minute financial coaching session by visiting firesidechat.com/coaching. So after we spend our entire month working on our spending and savings plan, we set up automatic contributions for the entire calendar year from January to December. We're constantly working on increasing our income by finding additional income sources, and we've managed to automate our contributions every 2 weeks because that's how often we get paid. You have to think of investing like personal fitness. As I get older, I realize how easy it is for me to gain weight, but how hard it is to lose it. And I know I can't get physically fit by exercising just once a month or twice a year. Consistency and discipline are the two keys to our financial success. We're always keeping the 4% rule in mind. However, as our portfolio grows bigger over the years, we could probably just live on a 3% or even 2.5% withdrawal rate. For example, withdrawing 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year, right? But withdrawing 4% of $5 million is $200,000 a year, and we probably wouldn't need all that money in retirement unless we're doing something outrageous. We could probably just live on 3% of $5 million at $150,000 a year to make the investment last longer and grow bigger. So again, consistency and discipline are the keys. We want to be aggressive with our investments for the next 10 years while we're still young. Also, earlier in this video, I touched on diversifying our income sources. We don't want to have all $2 million or $5 million invested in the stock market. We would expand our assets into real estate so that when the market is on the downturn like this year in 2022, we could continue to rely on the rental income. And we would love to own 10 or 20 or 50 units of real estate to collect rental income so we wouldn't have to withdraw from our stock market portfolio when the stock market is down 10%, 15%, or 20% in the bear market. And when you get started on your FIRE journey, the first question you have to ask yourself is if you have an effective budget that tracks your spending. The second question is if you have any debt like credit cards, student loans, or car loans that you like to pay off as soon as possible. The third question is if you're contributing to your retirement account up to your employer match. And the last question is if you're maximizing your retirement contributions every year. You have to get out of that mindset of contributing just 5%, 10%, or 15% of your income. If you want to achieve FIRE early, you have to ask yourself how to maximize your retirement contributions every year. So I'm always thinking about what the maximum contribution will be for my TSP and IRA in 2022, 2023, 2025, and beyond. And I just found out today that the HSA contribution limits are going up from $36.50 to $38.50 in 2023. We're investing in our HSA like a Roth IRA, and I will link that video in the description below. You have to keep in mind that early retirement is entirely possible if you have the time and the income to contribute extra money towards your non-retirement investments. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's easy for anyone to do, because it's not. If you make $70,000 a year, then it's probably not likely to retire in 10 years unless you get a significant pay raise or adjust your retirement age, right? Or if you have a crazy stock market that's giving you a 50% return or something crazy like that. However, if you're 50 years old because you're eligible to withdraw from your 401k, TSP, or IRA at 59.5, it is entirely possible to reach the retirement number by maximizing your retirement contributions. You would also be eligible to collect Social Security at age 62, so that's an additional income source. But if you have a large nest egg in your 401k or IRA, then you might be able to wait longer to receive more money at age 70 from Social Security. This is obviously not financial advice because every one of you has a different financial situation. Lastly, I want you to be very realistic with your retirement and non-retirement contributions. You should be able to enjoy your life while you're on the FIRE journey. And the only time I ask my clients to cut back on their discretionary spending like travel, dining out, or hobbies is when they're in debt or don't have anything saved in their emergency fund. And not having any debt would dramatically increase your savings rate. Trust me, when I paid off my $110,000 in consumer debt back in 2016, my net worth significantly increased over the last 5 years. When you don't have anything put away in your emergency fund, you're not financially secure. The purpose of having an emergency fund is to protect yourself from medical emergencies, loss of job, or something unexpected. And if you want to know more about how I saved my first $100,000 and built a personalized emergency fund, be sure to check out these 2 videos. So with that said, I appreciate you watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.